Fort Campo, 5th July 2640, 0621 local. The incessant rapid beeping slowly wormed its way through the whiskey-fueled fog, gradually drawing Reese's consciousness to the fore. Who the fuck? It was the wee hours of a Saturday morning, and the previous night's festivities quickly made their presence known through sharp spikes at his temples that insidiously synchronized themselves to the beeping, still chanting its call from the console on his desk. Reese swore a second time, quietly, before rolling to the edge of his bed. Familiar pain spiked and his mind swam, but Lieutenant Reese Kett was a practiced hand at navigating the minefield of an early morning hangover. He sank into his desk chair, popping a pair of painkillers before chugging a full bottle of the electrolyte-rich sports drink he had left next to the pills the night before. He quietly thanked the advances in modern over-the-counter medicine as the pain was washed away, but the fog of lingering inebriation would remain for a little while longer. He finally silenced the incessant beeping by opening the urgently marked message arriving on the wings of official US Army channels. Odd. Usually this heads to the CO. Oh right, he's on leave. So what could possibly be so important? Reese never finished the thought, as the contents of the urgent message played into his Army-issued, cochlear-augmented universal monitors, the United Terran answer to cutting-edge air, land, sea, and spaceborne individual communications devices. The hyper-microprocessor revolution of half a century prior proved the CAUM, pronounced COM, provided the audio that accompanied the shocking images from Sol's Systems' resource-rich Kuiper Belt mining operations. Kett could only look on in shock and horror. The images were from the command center of a Glencore habitation and command station. A bright flash heralded the arrival of something. A triplicate of orbs, fused with a thick oval ring, exited the anomaly. Alarms wailed, and futile orders barked, but this newcomer was never there to talk. Bright lances of energy flared from the edges of the newcomer's exterior ring. The camera was recording the forward observation port, and was given a front seat to one of those vibrant green blades of energy that sliced cleanly through it, severing the bodies of a third of the crew inside the command center. Half of the survivors were set ablaze as the blast superheated the air inside, but they did not burn long, and the crippled port failed. Lieutenant Reese Kett watched the inferno surge, being blown out into the void. A silent prayer escaped his lips as the video died, replaced by scrolling data, and fresh orders buttoned up the end of the urgent transmission. Moments later, his personal device rang. Kett stood. The last of the previous night's festivities violently burned away by the images, now seared into his memory forever, and reached into the hanging jacket to recover the device. He recognized the number, instantly knew what happened. Hey, Frank. Over 1,000 miles away, Captain Francis Knight had just stepped away from an early morning coffee date with his wife on the sands of Key West. You seen it? A deep sigh groaned over the other end of the call. Yeah, I did. God rest their souls. What's your ETA? Captain Frank Knight nodded mentally. His XO was clearly taking care to watch the information he disclosed over an unsecured line. I've got a jumper flight in 45 minutes. Brass wants us mobilized within the week. I'll see you on base this evening. Damn. How's the old lady and the kids taking it? Frank turned toward the shoreline, watching his wife regard him with a knowing gaze. God, she's gorgeous. The thought flipped through his mind just as every personal device in his immediate presence, and he suspected across the globe, began beeping and buzzing wildly. I think it just got out, and now I get to go tell her. Wish me luck. A hoarse chuckle rippled itself from Reese's chest. I'll have Doc meet you at the airfield. He could hear the choking laugh over the device. Fuck you, Lieutenant, was all Frank responded with, before closing the connection. He turned just in time to be impacted by a familiar live frame. "How long?" Julie Knight whispered into Frank's ear. Frank wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close and breathing in deeply. Even now, the scent of her hair seemed to draw even the tensest stress from his body. "I don't know, but it's bad. People are dead. A lot of people." Julie returned his embrace before pulling back to look into his eyes. "Can you tell me who?" Frank returned her searching gaze before glancing down at his now wildly vibrating personal device. "I can't, but..." He opened the message containing a video link from the national news. He tilted the screen to show her, and pressed play. Fort Campbell, 7th July 2640, 1300 local. The room was quickly filling, and First Sergeant Mike Darth Silverstone quickly settled into his seat. Today was not a day for the usual antics. His squad was quickly arriving, a mix of veterans and fresh enlistees alike. Private Jacob Jace Plinko was the first to arrive, followed by Peter Peppy Thompson and Marcus Trey Collins. Specialist Bill Stetson Harrison settled into the seat next to him. "Sergeant," was all he said. His face creased with distracted worry, and Mike understood why. Stetson was the grandson of a wildly successful oil family that saw the winds of change and reached for the Kupier belt. The wide-brimmed hat he wore on days off proved a not-so-subtle hint to his origins, but Bill had taken a severe tongue-lashing at his decision to avoid the family business and join up. That said, his growing up proved to provide, even here, and Stetson proved himself quickly as a demolitions and explosives expert. That didn't keep the deep creases of worry from the Titanic Texan's features. He had family out there, and by the looks of it, many were still missing. Trevor Seasick Johnson and Xavier Oddball Corbin were the last of Darth's squad to arrive, along with the last few stragglers just before the doors shut and locked. Captain Frank Knight's boots thumped a somber, rhythmic dirge on their way up to the podium, and a heavy, dangerous intensity settled over the company. A new addition gave a small fidget here or there, but the very public headlines curtailed even the freshest of boots from missing the reason for their assembly. Captain Knight took the measure of the room, then tapped a key on the podium. "Men of the 10th Terran." His booming voice silences the last of the murmurs. "By now you have seen the headlines, and you know that we have been attacked by another intelligent spacefaring species. The age-old question of whether we are alone in this universe has its grim answer." The captain keyed another control, and the massive vessel with the 3 interconnecting globes in an oblong ring snapped into view on the holoprojectors. "I regret to say that the station was indeed completely destroyed, and chaplains are available at the leisure of anyone who may have had family aboard. I also regret to inform you that these beings chose an artillery bombardment rather than a boarding action." Knight keyed into existence a new set of images. "These are recordings from the United Terra SensorNet." The entire room watched as every escape pod, every fragment of the station big enough to hold survivors, and the same energy beam systematically obliterated every asteroid emitting energy signals or signs of life. Then, and only then, did small landing craft launch. "It has been decided that these aliens mean to strip us of our resources at a minimum, or worse, erase us from existence." A hushed murmur returned, but only for a moment, as the captain raised a hand. "I understand your reaction. This is not the first contact we had hoped for, and it appears that these aliens may have found us by backtracking Voyager 1. The silence was complete at this point, and the podium creaked under the captain's grip. Spines stiffened, and eyes hardened at the set on Frank Knight's face as he spoke. "Men of the 10th Terran, let me remove the last questions from your mind. Each and every one of you were picked from the best of the American and European branches of the United Terran military. We all know our mission, to counter Mars should we fight, to drop into the void and dare it to swallow you. Force it to blink as it stares back at you. The Lord knows that almost happened many times over. But this... He pointed to the images still hovering in the air behind him. This, boys, this changes everything. Frank Knight's fury assailed them, each syllable a hammer forged in terrible promise. Mars is with us, Terra is with us, humanity is with us. In 4 days we set sail for Cooper. These aliens wish to strip our home bare and murder our kin. So, I ask you this one question. Forget dropping into hell, boys. Who among you is ready? Ready to bring hell with you? Who among you is to ride on the wings of damnation itself? The room erupted. The last 48 hours of shock, horror, and anguish poured into one purpose. The 10th Terran was going to war. Houston International Transit Station, 11th July 2640, 0825 local. First Lieutenant Michael Blazin Dawes stepped onto the loading platform of Concourse Charlie. He shifted uncomfortably in the low centrifugally imparted gravity of the aging pre-artificial gravity station. His duffel seemed to almost float on his shoulder, despite it weighing almost 80 pounds on Terra. Soon enough, he found what he was looking for, and Mike quickly stepped over to a grizzled-looking sergeant wearing Alpha Company patches. Sergeant Benjamin Friedman? The grizzled man turned with a quick appraising nod and a salute. Lieutenant Dawes, I see you made it all right. The boys are already aboard. He handed a datapad to the lieutenant. Let's see, Mike mused. I can confirm. He knew he didn't need to, but Dawes was the youngest and newest lieutenant in the 10th, and he needed to practice everything he could, while he could. He joined the 10th Terran less than a year ago, a fresh set of butter bars on his shoulder. He knew his men, but he also knew that the veterans in Alpha regarded him as untested. He felt it. The sergeant at his shoulder had seen 2 pirate interdiction deployments, and participated in the liberation of Ceres Station from a radical oligarch who was attempting to build an RFG rod from God meant for terror. About a third of the men under his command came from similar backgrounds, having been blooded in the tumultuous 20-year beginning period of human expansion inside their own solar system. Mars was much older, settled nearly 300 years prior, but many historians did not count her. The true beginning of human expansion came with the invention of NFTL, or Near Faster Than Light technology. This discovery came in 2 parts. First, the engines to propel spacecraft at relativistic speeds, and the field generation technology to keep everyone aging the same as real space. These 2 groundbreaking breakthroughs, 2 decades ago, had gifted humanity the Kuiper Belt and the rest of the Sol system. Sadly, the light speed barrier appeared to remain intact, at least for humanity, and Lieutenant Dawes was not looking forward to the extended voyage promised. Lieutenant? Friedman's question pulled Dawes from his thoughts. Fried, I told you. It's blazing when we're in the field. Sergeant Friedman simply nodded. Whatever you say, Lieutenant, but we depart in 5. Dawes looked down at his watch, an ancient timepiece handed down from father to son in his family. I see. Shall we? He responded, and the 2 started down the boarding corridor, boarding the TNS Saratoga, just as the departure alarms began to blare. Mooring lamps detached, sending a shudder through the 5-mile-long vessel. Fresh from her refit, Saratoga's wide, flat, angular hull bore a fresh coat of sensor-confusing stealth coating. The shore power umbilical was the last to detach, breaking away, cleaning as Saratoga's sharply raked prow swung round as she laid to course. The Titanic supercarrier would be the heart of 8th Fleet's Battle Group Charlie, cobbled together from available vessels. Terra's reach for the stars had resurrected hallowed names from humanity's history upon their cradle world's vast oceans, and Saratoga was but one of the legendary names called upon to provide both shield and sword in humanity's aid. Saratoga's main drives fled to life in earnest, burning hard from the grasp of the homeworld, but she was not alone. TNS Indefatigable, a 7-mile Dreadnought-class warship, pulled alongside Saratoga's port beam, with TNS New Jersey, another Dreadnought, mirroring Indefatigable's position to starboard. Ahead of the trio, TNS destroyers Daring, O'Bannon, and Kidd settled into their advanced positions at the fore of the formation, while TNS Fletcher and Antelope screened their rear. In 2 weeks, Battle Group Charlie would meet with the 3rd Royal Martian Fleet Group, Orion, whose composition remained a mystery to Saratoga and her cohorts. Terra and Mars boasted a long, checkered relationship, each one holding their technological advancements close to their chest. In the wake of the slaughter of over 100,000, both Martian and Terran had ended that competition. In 2 weeks, a 3-century-long Cold War would end, and rivals would unite over Titan before departing for vengeance. Prospect 8943785-127 28004.61 Kixare Gore stood from his command position, a throne-like resting place that rose above the segmented pits that divided command deck systems and duties aboard the Miseric V. Cran. Eternal Victory. Subordinates bustled below him, each one refusing to look up to him, both a sign of respect and one of fear. Kixare's 4 legs spun his 4-meter tail, narrow torso smartly around, and he measured his pace to a menacing march while he departed the bridge. One of his 3 arms reached for the refreshment console inside of his ready room, ordering his evening meal. Moments later, his triple-segmented mandibles spread, tearing into fresh, if vacuum-damaged, flesh. His subordinates would have to wait, but as the Lord Master of the Mikira's Vir Khan, it was his right by the old codes to taste of the flesh of the defeated, as his pleasure. It was the Icrian Principality way. It was a shame that none survived the bombardment. The living were so much more delicious than the frozen dead. Kixare mused over the after-action reports, comparing them to the intelligence he had been given for this expedition. A death world full of primitive sapiens. How they survived their cradle to reach for the stars was the void's own mystery. It mattered little. It was clear they were fleeing their home, desperately reaching for the edges of their cradle system. The military installations he had effortlessly obliterated were pathetically underprotected and barely armed. If this was the might of these humans, then bringing their world to the heel of the Principality would not require the vast resources brought to bear in this backwater hellhole. He perused the intelligence package once more. Extreme gravity, dangerous weather anomalies, poisonous plants, and lethal animals. The species that survived, that world, should have put up more of a contest, but it mattered not. He was meant to be but the spy, merely here to scout and report back. The ludicrous nature of what he had discovered demanded Kixare act, and his attack had proven a wild success. His meager scouting vessel single-handedly carved the foothold required to secure the arrival of the main fleet. The console beeped, announcing the same fleet's arrival, and Kixare chose another morsel, activating the holographic projectors inside his office. The sensor feed from his vessel flashed into existence, just as a triplicate of moons arrived, with the same bright flash of subspace rupture. These moons, captured eons ago and painstakingly converted into the mother vessels the Icrian used at the core of their void-born forces. Vaki Zor, Superior Hand, Wixre Anir, Subjugation, and Muzirin Vakralen, Hallowed Destruction, each carried over 100,000 single-seat fighter and attacker aircraft, but they did not deploy them. Mother vessels were the only vessels capable of crossing the great expanses between the stars. The key to the Principality's dominance, the quantum subspace render, was small enough to be put into even a small vessel such as Kixare's, and the unique mission set of his command required its installation. The QSR's power requirements relegated such combinations to incredibly short ranges. The motherships were the only vessels in the Principality's possession capable of transiting the length of the Principality's territory. One mother vessel was a death sentence for those who opposed the Principality, and Kixare watched entire warships undock and deploy from all three. Whatever the Principality had acquired from their information exchange with the Vigrian Infogarchy had obviously spooked his betters. Kixare closed the hologram feed just as the 1300th warship was deployed from the third mother vessel, leaning back to finish his meal. No matter. Such an overreaction undoubtedly will improve the review of my actions here. The thought carried him food to dessert, a delectable blood pudding. These sapiens were truly delicious.